Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 as we talk about politics. Can politics be healthy? We think we might. We think maybe. So come with us. Tapestry weaves together the threads of our struggles, doubts, curiosities, faith, joys, and hopes to create meaningful conversations that matter. You know those late night conversations that go unexpectedly deep? That's what we hope to capture with the Tapestry Podcast. And we want everyone to join in the conversation. Because when we are heard and valued, we can begin to believe we're loved. Welcome to the Tapestry Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tapestry Podcast. I'm here with my friend Mwangi.
What's up?
And my friend Mikayla.
Hi.
And yeah, we're talking about, can politics be healthy? And in the previous episode, if you haven't listened to that one or watched it, we kind of asked the question, like, what's wrong with our politics? Like, why are you like this? And in this episode, we're going to try to talk about maybe some things that can make it better, or some solutions, and kind of how that connects to spirituality and faith. And in the final episode, we're going to talk some about the stakes. What are the spiritual stakes here? What are the consequences of getting this right or wrong? So let's dive in. Like, we've talked a little bit about the problem, and maybe we'll talk more about the problem because it's hard to not talk about the problem. But what are some possible bright spots or solutions that we can think of?
I don't know, man. I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but I'm not sure. You go, Mikayla.
Dang it. I do think that there is a bright spot to some parts of politics, which is that it can help people and it can protect people. Like when gay marriage got legalized and stuff, in similar situations like that, I think it can provide a benefit to overall quality of life for a lot of people. And I want to say that that's one that provided that for a lot of people because it gave them the option to marry the person they love. But in the same way, I wouldn't say there's a whole lot that's healthy about how we conduct things right now.
Sure, yeah, but like, could there be? Like, kind of that's the question, right? So, like, we talked in the previous episode about how we have friends that we have conversations with that we differ in opinion on important things, but we can still have a conversation. Why are we able to do that? How, like, Mikayla, you talked about some friends. Like, what do you talk about, even though you disagree on things?
Gun control. I would say that I have a different opinion than some of my other friends who do use guns to go hunting and for recreation and stuff like that, because I don't have those experiences I want to say, but it does broaden my knowledge on things that I don't normally know a whole lot about, such as like recreational hunting and how it could be actually beneficial to the environment and things like that. Like, I don't have a lot of firsthand experience with hunting and stuff like that, but understanding where they're coming from in terms of like how it can be beneficial for the ecosystem, or how it even provides them as something to do during their weekends, as if they need like something for stress relief. It gives me a different perspective on things I wouldn't normally think differently about. And I think that's probably another way that in other scenarios, politics can be healthy, is because it broadens your perspectives on things and opens you up to a new idea you wouldn't normally consider in the first place. It depending on how you go about sharing that opinion, it might not always be the most positive interaction between two people.
I like that stance. So maybe it's not in politics. Maybe if I separate the politician from, let's say, legislation and law, I think maybe that's also some of the rub, right? Because I guess if politicians actually did what they're supposed to and follow some of the things that they pass, some things would get better, because what is promised is not what's either enacted or done. So that could be one aspect of it. Maybe if the messages could just stand alone without the politician. So maybe we were just reading a blog and we're not trying to be preached to by this politician. And it's like this kind of like when you're voting and they give you the blueprints about, what's going to happen, right? You're voting on this amendment, etc. Maybe step one is, no, maybe the politicians need a chip. Like they can exit stage left and just the message be understood without them. They can still come back, but I think that's part of the thing. It's the politicians that are delivering the message and maybe delivering it in a certain way that they're not really communicating everything that's there. And unfortunately, there's some good stuff in there, and some of them will leave out the good stuff because it'll look like, oh, if you're helping so and so, you must not be part of my people, right? So even some of them have to play this thing of like, well, I can't be seen, right? I can't be seen helping this thing, so I will not mention that, which is kind of sad sometimes.
Yeah, certainly. If we're talking about like on the kind of legislative end of things, if we're talking about politicians doing their jobs, not just the way that we as regular folks talk about politics or kind of political issues. Yeah, there are lots of ways that politics can get more healthy there. I mean, but it requires some like maybe self-defeating practices. And by that, I mean, like, if you are a politician, let's say you're like, I don't know, like you're a farmer. I don't know, you're a farmer and you have some issues that you're like, this is really important. And you run for local office and you win. And then you run for a bigger office and like so on and so forth until you're in a spot where you've got some real influence and real power and you can actually start to affect the change that you had hoped to be able to do with all the best intentions, with none of the like kind of like sliminess that sometimes we associate with politics, like that this is a wholesome individual, right? But at some point, in order to do the change, to make the change that that person wants to see, they have to stay in power, right? You can't get booted out of office. Otherwise, you can't make the change that you want to see. And there could be a time when staying in power means you have to compromise something that you didn't really want to compromise, or you have to kind of pander or, what's the word I'm looking for? Like maybe not take a bribe necessarily, but like, a special interest group wants to talk to you about something and they're going to donate to your campaign. You take the money because otherwise you can't make the change that you've always hoped to do. And then like multiply this by 4 or 5 or 600, right? At the federal level for our representatives and by thousands all around the country. And it's kind of the problem we have, right? And one of the problems that I see is that, like just what you said, Mwangi, like you can't be seen to be helping the wrong people, quote unquote, wrong people, right? You can't be seen to be fraternizing with the enemy. Otherwise you get voted out of office. So like, what if we could quit all that? And part of it, I think, is probably the two-party system. Like it's easier with a two-party system where there are just kind of two main parties to pit one side against the other. It seems that it's easier to do that, right? If you've got 3 or more parties, it's harder to paint 2 other parties that way, or maybe even 4 other parties that way, right? So I think politics could be healthier in that way if we had it has to be a bunch. It has to be a lot of politicians who committed to not playing that game of like a race to the bottom where it's just kind of demonizing the other side and lionizing and hero worshiping their own side. So that's maybe one thing that could help. I don't know.
I mean, it can, but that's tough. So you're saying I'm a politician, I need money to fundraise, right? To buy my ads and my banners. So I need money. That's not going to come out anyway, right? Then maybe once I'm in there, I need influence. I need the endorsement of so-and-so to help me, right? So, I'm sure you've heard, like sometimes the problem is you get elected and then the next thing you start thinking about is your next campaign. Mm-hmm. Even if it's 6 years out, you start fundraising for the next, so you could stay in power. So then
it's a problem.
Your mind shifts from oh, I'm here, I should actually govern. Instead, it's like, oh, how do I stay in power? Again, we've tried this thing. So in the UK, they have something called, like, their parliament. You have the House of Lords, House of Commons, right? So the logic was, okay, House of Commons, you guys will keep getting elected by the people, right? But the idea of the House of Lords was, kind of like what you have in the Supreme Court is, okay, Mikayla, once you become a lord, like, you don't have to worry about campaigning anymore. You're set for life. So now you could just focus on governing, right? Because you're not so worried about, right? So you put these together, and hopefully, like, things should march ahead. But again, we're human beings, right? So that doesn't necessarily, like, there's problems there. You may say, okay, if Mikayla has been on this, in this seat for the last 50 years, she's out of touch, right? What does she know about what somebody in Fort Collins is going through, right? So them being on a lifetime appointment may not be the best thing, even though it sounds really, the idea sounds good, but I'm not sure that it's also best. I don't know what the better idea is, but that's just another example.
I think that we lose a lot of perspective in politics now by the way that we do it with the lobbying and endorsements and everything like that. We lose a lot of different perspectives, smaller perspectives of, groups of people who can't necessarily afford to endorse a certain political candidate or not. We lose, like, the little person's voice. We lose the lowest class, like, voice in like, lobbying for higher endorsements, better looking people to be a part of their campaign. And I think that's a huge loss, honestly, in how we do policy or, like, politics right now, because we could be doing so much more for the common man than we are. And it bothers me that you can't hear, the everyday person's approach as much, that there isn't a really, like, a common person. And that's what our representatives in office are supposed to be for us, but they have been lobbying, endorsing, trying to be influencing to some degree long enough that they've lost touch with the rest of what's going on with,
so why do we keep electing them, Mikayla? But we keep electing them.
Because they have influence.
You're right. I mean, I 100% agree with you. Like, legit. Like, you're right. Because they'll go somewhere and say, I represent, so-and-so, right? But to your point, like, to what extent, right? To what extent do they, so they'll come back home, they'll do their campaign thing, and then they'll get elected again, right? Part of it is our fault.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's obviously our fault on some level. And part of that is that we like we're attracted to the bright and shiny, right? Like magpies, but like Mikayla said, the good looking one, right? Yeah. If you got two candidates you don't know much about, and one of them is like way more attractive than the other, like there's going to be some people who click on, or not click, but, fill in the circle or whatever, however you end up voting in your precinct. But I think you guys are onto something when it comes to, like, true representation. I think that's also really important, because I think there's a serious degree to which our representatives do not represent us. And in order for things to be healthier, they would need to represent us more faithfully. But I think there are powers working against that, whether that's, genuine corruption that's like blatant corruption, or just kind of like a relatively corrupt way of doing money in politics or any of that. So it seems like there's like a lot of like headwinds that we face when it comes to trying to move toward a healthier politics. And we don't have much say over a lot of that. Maybe we have some, like, one of the nice things about states like Colorado where we have ballot issues is that just about anybody can try to get enough signatures to get a ballot initiative in front of voters, which is great, which means that, like, we can just make a law or repeal a law. But that's not usually kind of exactly how it works. It's usually some group that creates the language of the thing. And anyway, but like, what can we do as individuals? Like, I kind of like to spend maybe the rest of our time in this episode talking about, as individuals, as human people, what can we do in our own lives, in the people we're connected to help make the conversation around politics healthier, Do you guys have thoughts on that?
I think it starts with your action and reaction to people's opinions. If you can control your reaction to people's opinions, regardless of whether or not you agree with them at the point in time, I think it's a great way to start a healthy conversation, because as long as there's, reasonable emotional regulation, you can get, for sure, frustrated at somebody maybe not understanding your opinion or something, but as long as you don't lash out at the other person for what they think, I think that's probably a healthier way, at least to get the conversation started in between people at a healthier rate than what is currently happening. Because I know for a lot of people, it's very black and white. It's you agree on this thing or you don't agree on this thing, and you are my public enemy number one. But versus if we change the conversation to being, sure, I might not agree with you and you might not agree with me, but we can still see each other as people and meet in the middle as people, because we do have one common thing on this earth, is that we are all human beings. And that is where you could just start with on baseline.
I like what you said there. You used the word emotional regulation, I think. Is that what you said? I think that's great. And I think some of us tend toward rage, right? But there are others of us that tend toward other emotions that can be just as damaging to a conversation. And I think one of those is condescension, like belittling someone or talking down to them, right? Like I think I've moved away from that. And you guys know me well enough. I hope, have I moved away from that? Like, I hope I don't,
Yes.
I'm not condescending. But I have been in the past, for sure. And I think you could ask anybody who's known me for more than 20 years, probably say, oh yeah, Mike, when you knew you were right about something, you could belittle anybody with the best of them. Which is so unhelpful, right? It doesn't move anything forward. Like, it feels good to the person who's like, feels superior, but like, it's a great way to continue in an unhealthy conversation, or to just end a conversation. So certainly being too angry or too, I don't know, fired up or emotional, but also like kind of being too superior and like, I too once believed as you did, but then I saw the light. Like, there's a little bit of that, right? Or like, oh, yes, child. Yes, I can see why you might think that's an attractive option. However, you may not be aware that, So how do you present a different option without it coming across as feeling superior or kind of being condescending with somebody? I don't know if I always get it right, to be honest, but I think it could be helpful.
I agree. Another method I found is keeping it local. So keeping the political conversation local, less grand, right? So, when I've been, I've interacted, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, with people with a different political ideas. What I've learned is if I can bring it local, I'll just be like, hey, so like, what about like this tax bill to fix this road, right? Because once you bring it down, they're like, okay, now this makes sense. Because then I'm like, you should really think about what's happening in your community first before you talk about this abstract stuff that's happening nationally. I'm not saying national things don't matter, but I'll be honest, it's the local stuff that really hits you. And so when you start, if you start talking about like, well, okay, why don't we want to fund this, or why don't we want to do this? I think people can still disagree, but I think the conversation's a lot more cordial in my opinion, necessarily. When you bring in national politics, then you're talking in the abstract sometimes, right? Because you talk about, oh, so-and-so, or, so-and-so in Washington, you never met them, right? So that, that type of conversation is not constructive. But again, when I'm just like, well, don't you care about like XYZ, or, what are the challenges here? Oh yeah, like this hospital needs to be rebuilt and we have to get taxpayer dollars. Okay, like tell me more about that. Like, that I found to make it allows conversation to flow. If you start going abstract and saying, well, and these people over here, or New York or California or Texas, then and you're not even there, it never goes anywhere. It really never goes anywhere. There's nothing constructive that comes out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. My wife and I, Heidi and I took a little vacation, short little trip to the mountains last weekend. And so it was for our birthdays, and it was great. We went to, our birthdays are close to each other. And so we just stayed in a cabin, and our tradition when we go away is we just turn off our phones, like turn them off, like not silent, off. We'll turn them back on in airplane mode for pictures, right? When we're out on a hike or something. And it was so nice, you guys. Like, it was so nice to come back and just be like, no, I have no idea what happened. And like somebody texted me something about, I don't know when this will air, but like about Tylenol. There's something in the news about Tylenol. And
Oh God.
right. So you guys know, right? But like I had no idea what this was about, right? Because, and you know what? In 2 weeks from now, the whole Tylenol thing will not matter again, right? Like there's a degree to which we are inundated with this stuff, that we are just like flooded with it. And like we're asked to attend to all of it. And maybe if you don't know the thing about the Tylenol, you don't care about people or about about an issue, but we can't care about everything. Right. And so I think there's like maybe some bit of like, maybe just like turn it off for a little while is like a pretty good thing, because, there are many things one can say about our current president. But one thing that he is masterful at is staying in the conversation, of staying in the headlines. Like I've never seen a politician or really any other public figure who is so good at staying in the headlines all the time. And I think there are some really negative ways that he has done that. But that seems to be like the main purpose, like is to always stay in the conversation, like that everybody's always talking about it. And maybe one of the healthy things we can all do individually is just be like, man, no, just ignore it. Like you can't care about everything. In fact, an episode that was going to be just previous, it hasn't gone up yet, but it will have gone up by the time this one goes up. I talk about this, like you can't care about everything. Like it's our human hearts were not designed to hold that much. You just can't. We get overwhelmed. Like we're designed for villages, right? And for like small little tribes of 150 people or so. And when we try to care about every problem on the globe, it just like our neurological systems cannot handle it. Our hearts can't handle it.
Yeah, well said. I agree.
I would agree. I get too down the rabbit hole of what's happening in the world, and then I get a little overwhelmed, and I have to take a break from Instagram for like 3 days, so I can't ever think about what's happening in the world during those 3 days, because it is a lot, and there's a lot of good and a lot of bad going on in the world right now. And if you put too much of your own care that you have, like, I want to say that every day I have a certain amount of care. And if I put half of that into world issues every day, I have half of the emotional energy I have for an entire day that I need. And that's just not conducive to me, going on long term. I'm going to get burnt out by thinking about the issues in the world all the time. Not to say that I don't care about them, because I do, and I care very deeply. And some things that are happening in the world make me cry and bring me to tears, but that's because I don't have the resources to do anything about it in my personal life other than to just see it and observe it. But I can't, I agree with you that you can't always put that emotional weight into everything, because it really starts to weigh on you after like a month, 2 months, after 3, you just don't feel good anymore.
Or years and years and years, right? For some of us.
Yeah, and the tech is designed to push, right? The algorithms are
exactly
reward the polarity. So it's draining. It's very, very draining. So even if you're trying to open it up and say, I was talking to my friend today about this, if it's on Insta, like finding the good, I'm having a hard time finding good stuff because there's so much other stuff that's coming across that is not, and that's tough, right? So today he had written something and we were just reflecting on putting your phones down. We were like, hey, it'd be great if you could just post stuff, and we eliminated the like button, right? Because we're talking about this addiction on like you post something, then did somebody like me, or well, Mikayla didn't like this one, now she's not my friend anymore, right? So if we could even eliminate this idea of reaction, maybe some people can actually, hopefully, feel like they can post stuff and feel free about it without being, like because somebody didn't like it, oh, I shouldn't post anymore, right? Maybe it allows people to be a little bit more free. But the addiction of the likes, etc., or like how many views you got, that is not healthy. But again, the tech is designed to, it's weird, right? It's making you miserable, but it's about addiction, right? At the end of the day, right? It's trying to make you addicted. And just like anything addicting, it will drain you, but then after a while, you're going to be right back at it and be like, oh, I need some more, right? So the practice 3 days turning off is just creating that barrier to make sure that, it's not there. And I think on Sundays, I get my Apple, like, you've been on the phone, that this is your hourly, your weekly screen time, right?
average. Yeah.
And I need to go in and see whether, like, it's going up and down. But I think it's a good thing. The idea should be to shame me and maybe say like, hey, like, I wish you could shame me a little bit. It's just right now, just like, this is it. But it should give me like a green light, red light kind of thing, and be like, you did good this week, right? Like thumbs up. It should judge me.
I don't know about you. I feel plenty judged when I see my screen time for the week. Anyways.
Ooh, who's gonna share theirs though? Who's gonna share their most?
Let me see what it is before I say yes or no.
It's like, what was happening that week? Like
Well, mine's gonna be low because of my vacation recently, but. Yeah, we don't have to share. That's like the new really personal thing that like, who would you share that with? Who would you share your screen time averages with? Cause that's like a deep personal thing. So.
Oh, I never set this up on my new phone. I'm not sharing. I don't have anything to share.
I feel like that was on purpose.
No, I really didn't. I promise. But I do, because of it though, I have set on my phone, I have certain apps like Instagram, Pinterest, which is insane to me that that's become a form of social media that I can get addicted to about 1 to 3 hours a day, depending on the day. I can set my screen limit times, and after a while, my phone will be like, hey, you've used up your screen time for the day on this app. Go find something else to do, pretty much. Or you can set a timer and say, remind me in 15 minutes.
I've got my apps. All my social media apps are limited to 15 minutes.
Whoa! I wish I was that.
For the day.
I wish I was that way.
We'll work up to Mike. We'll work up to
game changer. Oh, I'm not trying to be more holy. No, that is not. That is not it. That is. Read that the other direction. Read that. If I spend more than that, then I'm just doom scrolling. And that whether it's politics or whatever. Not healthy for me. And I think, taking the breaks from that can be super good for us. And not every conversation has to be about politics, hopefully. But let me, as we kind of like come to our time here, there are things I think we ought to ask ourselves. Like, if we want politics to be more healthy in our country, whether or not we can do anything about stuff at the top. And I love, Mwangi, what you said about like, know about what's happening in your neighborhood and in your city, in your town, whatever it is. And other is, I think you should ask yourself, do I have genuine respect for the dignity of all other humans? And when I say dignity, I mean you're recognizing that they are a human in all the ways that you are human, that they have all the same kinds of hopes and dreams, and should have all the kinds of rights and privileges that you have. Do you have genuine respect for the dignity of all other people? And if so, shouldn't that extend to people who disagree with you politically? And if not, why not? Because I cannot think of any major world religion or spiritual tradition that would allow you to not have respect for the dignity of other humans. That is not part of the way of Jesus. That is not part of Islam. That is not part of Judaism. That is not part of Buddhism. That is not part of, I don't think it's part of, I don't know as much about Hinduism. Friends, if you're listening and you know more about Hinduism, let me know. I would love to know. That is not, you can't. Like that, it's not how it works. And I think connected to that, we end up thinking that like either one party or one group within a party, or maybe even one individual politician or somebody can do all the things. Like they can change it all and make it all better. And that's just never true, right? Like when can one person do everything that one person hoped to do, let alone everything that everyone else hopes that they would do? Like, I don't get done in any day what I hope to get done in that day.
Uh-huh.
Like, if you did, good for you. You are an advanced human, right? Like, if your to-do list is always done, man, good for you. But that's just like, it's just not how it works. But then we expect it to work that way when it's a person we elected to do something or whatever. It's just not how it works. So like having a realistic expectation about what can actually be done, I think could be really helpful for our politics as well.
I agree.
Any other things you guys would want to wrap up with in terms of kind of like how we might, like as individuals and people of faith, how can we make things better?
You can run for office.
Yeah.
So if it's not good, then maybe Mikayla runs for mayor, right? Like, go fix it, right? Make it better.
Be crazy. I don't think I've ever seen myself in politics, but I mean, it is a way to, if you want to see the change in the world, be the change. So go join those like groups, go join the things that you have interest in, some things like, some policies you want to see implemented, changed, whatever. If you consider yourself like a conservationist, maybe, join groups that are like working on environmental protections right now. Do the things that you are invested in and be willing to hear other people's opinions on why they're not invested in your thing.
That's good. That's good.
That's a great way to end it.
Let's end it there.
Mic drop.
Boom. Wow. So good. Well, everybody, thanks for coming along on this ride with us. We're going to, in the next episode, talk a little bit more about kind of the spiritual implications, faith community implications. What are the stakes here about getting this right or maybe getting it wrong? And hope to see you then. Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
The Tapestry Podcast is produced by Stephen Bailey. Original music was scored by Taylor Martin. Various friends host this podcast along with me, Mike Orr. Special thanks to Lauren Richmond Jr. and Resonate Media. You can learn more about Tapestry and join the conversation on our Discord channel at tapestrytalk.org. Thanks for joining us.